Hello everyone, this is Tom Stanley, State Representative for Waltham, and this is the Stanley Report. Today I'm very honored to have with me the Massachusetts Secretary of Transportation, Richard Davey. Welcome very much. Thanks for coming to Waltham.
Thank you, Rep. Appreciate you having me. Appreciate it.
Great. I just want to tell the folks a little bit about you. You live in Boston with your wife.
Correct, yes.
And neither one of you own a car.
That is correct.
You are good customers for the tea.
We're a good customer for the tea, occasionally a cab, and a zip car as well. So
Yeah.
we were able to get around.
Now, you graduated from Holy Cross in Worcester and also Gonzaga University School of Law. Where is Gonzaga?
It's in Spokane, Washington, small school, and right now is the #1 ranked men's basketball team in the entire country.
It's
so
kind of a
very proud.
big change because they were always the Cinderella team in the NCAA tournament. Now they're the big cheese.
We don't want to jinx them. Hopefully they'll have a good run this year.
And I owe my first recollection with Holy Cross was as a kid growing up and watching Ronnie Perry play basketball.
That's right. That's right.
Two good basketball schools.
That's right.
You served as general manager for the Massachusetts Bay Community Railroad, the MBTA general manager, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation Rail and Transit Administrator, and at that location you oversaw the MBTA and the 15 regional transit authorities.
Correct.
And in 2011, Governor Patrick appointed you Massachusetts Department of Transportation Secretary and Chief Executive Officer. So you've kind of done it all, except for maybe driving a bus.
No, I haven't driven a bus. I'm not a particularly good driver, so I don't think they would let me drive a bus, that's for sure. But yeah, I've been in transportation about 10 years, mostly on the operations side, a little less on the planning side, but I have seen it and grown from running an organization of about 1,800 employees to 6,000 to now about 10,000. Yeah. So, and really very much focused on safety and customer service. That's been kind of the hallmark of my career in transportation.
Could you talk a little bit about the history and how, the merger and how the Massachusetts Department of Transportation kind of came about?
Well, again, thanks to you and your colleagues in the legislature, to Governor Patrick, landmark transportation reform was passed in 2009. It merged a whole host of, we call maybe alphabet soup agencies, MBTA and the Registry of Motor Vehicles and these RTAs, all together to be focused on our customer and to reduce costs, by the way. So in 2009, the Turnpike was abolished and all these agencies came together as one. So it's, again, the MBTA, the Registry of Motor Vehicles, the old Highway and Turnpike, and then our aeronautics division as well. 10,000 employees and all across the state.
So those are and basically that's the 4 divisions that you
correct.
You spoke about. Now, the governor's proposed an ambitious proposal to really fix what's wrong with our transportation system and really go a little bit further into the 21st century, if you will. We have one of the oldest subway systems, or the oldest, but it's kind of showing its age right now. And part of your efforts and your job in the last several months, you've been really traveling all over the state, speaking to any group, Chamber of Commerce or what have you, about the transportation needs of the state. And in fact, I think I've been in 4 or 5 meetings with you, one at the Senate Reading Room at the State House with all the legislators and staff were invited to. We had just last week a meeting at the District 4 Highway office with legislators from the area and local officials. And I think the week before that we were at the 128 Business Council in Waltham. The Mayor McCarthy was there, and Representative Lon and Senator Barrett, and again, the Chamber of Commerce and business leaders and so forth. And I think there's been a few other instances that our paths have crossed, but you really have gone above and beyond trying to sell the idea of what you think and Governor Patrick believes the state needs. Could you just talk a little bit about that?
Sure. No, and for the better part of the year, we've been out across the state listening to our customers. It started last year with the MBTA's concerns around its deficit and budget deficit. We held 30 hearings across the state, listening to customers about potential for fare increases and service cuts. And then after we were able to at least get through 1 year of that budget, the legislature asked us to then go out and really go statewide and listen to customers. So we held 17 hearings across the state, from Amherst and Pittsfield and Springfield down the Cape and up in the Merrimack Valley.
And there was a hearing in Waltham as well.
That's correct.
Last year.
That's right. And so listening to folks and making sure that we were collecting ideas and thoughts and concerns. But it's clear that the current transportation system we have, we can't afford. The one that I know you've heard about and the one that I heard from customers that people want is one we absolutely can't afford. And so what we've done is put a plan before the legislature in the form of not only a plan, a 10-year plan, but a budget to fund it that really rights the fiscal ship, makes investments in our current assets, our roads, our bridges, and our trains today, and then makes a down payment on future expansion for the Commonwealth. And what we've been saying to folks, we're going to pay for it one way or the other. We're either going to pay for it in fares, tolls, and fees, and more importantly, and you know this, but your viewers may be interested in it, we borrow to pay for our highway operations right now, and that's crazy. It costs for the...
We're talking about salaries.
Absolutely. So salaries and operations today. So for every dollar we borrow today to basically fund all those activities, snow plowing and tree cutting and cleaning along the right-of-way, for every dollar we spend, it's going to cost all of us $1.76 in the future, and it's been going on for 20 years. So there's a lot of craziness that we're trying to eliminate, and we're trying to really right this financial ship going forward.
Right. And so let me see. I'm not sure if you mentioned, but the budget would be about a $23 billion proposal.
So that's right. So over a 10-year period, we're proposing to basically double our capital plan, going from about $12 billion to about $25 billion, and that would be invested in new red and orange line cars, the T, and new buses, and new interchanges for folks watching who drive up and down 93 or 95. The two most congested interchanges in the state, in Woburn and in Canton, would be realigned. We've got some projects in Springfield, and really projects all over the state that, for the most part, as I said, invest in our current system, but with some targeted expansion as well for places around the state that have been left behind, places like Fall River and New Bedford, for example.
And now I know, folks always say, well, reform first. That's the mantra. We want to make sure that money's not being wasted. And it's virtually almost impossible. I think in even the private sector or the public sector, no matter how hard managers try, it's not going to be perfect. But I think I know that Massachusetts has really done a tremendous job in the last several years, and you've been a big part of it. Could you talk about some of those reforms that the Commonwealth has implemented already?
Absolutely. And again, thanks to you and your colleagues and Governor Patrick putting the reform piece together several years ago, we've been able to save over $500 million in taxpayer dollars in the last 3 years. So we've realigned our health care benefits and pension benefits to make them more aligned with the private sector, so they're not as overly generous as they once were. We've done things like we used to have 2 operators in the red line and orange lines. Now we have 1. We have a new registry website. We'll be selling advertising on the registry website. So we're trying to use creative techniques and tools to not only raise non-fare revenue, but reduce our overhead costs. And then on tolling, something we've talked about recently. And to your point, reform is never done. You're always in a process where you can improve. And so the latest proposal we have is to eliminate all manual toll collection in the state and go to electronic tolling. So that would allow us to eliminate about 300 jobs, $50 million per year in savings forever. And so we're trying to bring more of those cost-saving improvements to bear. One other one I mentioned too, though, is that reform is not just about, I think, dollars, although that's important, but it's also how we provide services to our customers. So now folks can, rather than wait in line, they can go online at the registry for their transactions. We had over 3 million transactions last year on the web. I hope folks have seen some of our countdown signs, our traffic countdown signs on I-93, the 5 minutes, 5 miles, I hope, Hopefully it's not worse traffic. And that's been successful. We're going to roll that out statewide too.
And bus riders can they could check with their app. And I know one friend of mine who lives on Main Street, Route 20 in Waltham, and he said his life has improved greatly because he just sits in his house and watches. He can tell where the bus is.
That's right.
And then he'll just go out and walk across the street about 2 or 3 minutes before the bus is going to arrive.
Yeah, and if folks want to look at that, it's on our website. There are a number of apps that can be downloaded for free, or some folks charge. And we were the first transit agency in the United States to roll that out. So we're really proud of some of the customer improvements we had. And to your point, trying to find ways to improve the customer's experience without necessarily spending a lot of money to do it. And the bus apps are a perfect example of that, a significant improvement for low cost.
Now, the state also implemented some changes with regards to pensions and when people could retire and so forth as well, right?
That's correct. So the old system at the MBTA was called 23 and out. You could retire regardless of age with 23 years experience at the T. That's been eliminated for new employees. Healthcare costs, we've moved our employees into what's called the Group Insurance Commission, the GIC, which basically means employees have to pay a little more of their own healthcare costs, which has saved the T money as well.
So great. So are there any other efficiencies that you can that might be on the horizon right now, or that off the top of your head, or that you can think of that you haven't mentioned already?
Well, the tolling for sure is one that's coming soon. We're going to look at other real-time traffic information, so not only for 93 but across the state. We're also looking at some private-public partnership opportunities too. We think there's some opportunities for some land that we own, some rest areas that we own, and so there may be some opportunities there. We just rolled out a pilot program about 6 months ago with land we own in Northampton, which is not developable, but what we ended up doing is putting a solar farm on the land. So we're able to reduce our energy costs at the building that we put it close to, obviously reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and otherwise make land that just will sit useful. So those are the kinds of things, creativity, we're trying to bring to bear.
Oh, great. Now, and any other ways in which economic growth is tied to the transportation infrastructure?
Well, you raise a good point. I mean, transportation is actually about jobs and economic development. I think Waltham is no exception, right? Between the need to make sure we have a good road infrastructure, commuter rail, bus availability to move employers, employees, customers, the elderly to doctor's appointments, shopping opportunities, and socializing. This is what transportation is all about. And there are a lot of anecdotes you can point to. I think a very visible example is what's going on right now in Somerville, just a little east from here. We're building a new Orange Line T station, the first one in 2 or 3 decades, and it's unlocking an enormous redevelopment of the old Ford assembly plant site in Somerville. Millions of square feet of retail and office and housing, all because we started as government making an investment in that transit station.
That's going to make the local community more vibrant and bring in a lot of property taxes.
Property taxes, job growth opportunity, and then with a T station right there, you're not going to see the kinds of traffic you would normally potentially see without good public transportation link. A lot of examples like that. Downtown Boston and the Seaport District. Downtown Worcester right now is almost all under construction, I think because of some of the transportation dollars that we've brought to bear. So a lot of examples of growth across the state when transportation is leading the way.
Right. Now, I think there are a number of areas around Greater Waltham where there's an effort to improve the intersection safety, if you will. Could you talk about that at all?
Sure. So working with our District 4 Highway Office that, as you said, you had a chance to visit with last week, working with traffic engineers from Waltham to see if we can make improvements. We do have some current dollars we can bring to bear, and we hope with the governor's plan even more resources to bring to bear, both state, by the way, and local. I mean, that's something else that I should mention. The plan does provide additional state dollars directly to Waltham, and then Waltham can make the decisions about improvements. So whether it's paving or, to your point, intersections where there's a high crash location, maybe to redesign, crosswalks, other amenities and improvements. I mean, Waltham has done actually a pretty good job on its what we call complete streets, so making the streets in areas more welcoming for pedestrians and bicyclists. But obviously with more funding, Waltham can do more, and we hope to support that.
And, you know, the state's been doing great with Chapter 90 funding, which for anyone that doesn't know is Waltham and every community's roads and bridges, probably, I don't know what percentage, I want to say 90%, but most of it is funded by the state, and part of the governor's proposal will really increase. Right now, the communities are getting the most they've ever gotten,
correct,
as it is. But that's about to really increase if this proposal goes through into fruition. So.
That's right. No, exactly. I mean, and it's important, as I said, you know, there are big regional projects that we work on at the state level that your office will reach out to me and work on, but those local projects are just as important that we need to make sure we don't lose sight of, for sure.
Right. So I was just thinking the other place where we've met was the Ways and Means hearing was in Brockton. So
absolutely.
It's been quite a few times in the last month or two. Other issues in Waltham that I know I've been making you aware of, and the mayor and other people from Waltham have as well, is one of the things I'm concerned about is we do have the use of the MBTA service, the commuter rail and downtown bus service, and we're connected to Watertown or Cambridge, but there is definitely a need, I believe, within Waltham for public transportation. And so we're not part of, we're really part of urban Boston. We're not part of a regional transit authority, and I don't think we get as much service as maybe some of the other, most of the other communities within the urban, closer to the urban ring of Boston, just because of the nature of we're on the kind of the outer ring. And so that's one of the things I think, hopefully in the near future, but in the future that we can look at. And I think you mentioned, and I was thinking about this as you mentioned it the other day, was maybe rolling out smaller buses. Is that what the RTAs basically do? Or?
The RTAs do have usually smaller vehicles. I also think, one thing that we've also talked about is even looking at some private-public partnerships as well. So for employers who want to move their employees potentially maybe up and down the 128 corridor, there may be opportunities for us to partner with the private sector in providing those kinds of services. But you're exactly right. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't heard of anyone say, I want less transportation. Right. There's a real need, which is good. That's a great problem to have. It's now we have to find the resources to be able to deliver them.
As you know, I mean, in Waltham is just like any of the other communities. There's so many people that really require public transportation to get to work, to get to their healthcare needs, to go to church, or just to get to the grocery store sometimes. Sure. So it's real important. See, some of the other issues, obviously, everyone in Waltham knows about the development at Polaroid, and the team up there has kind of maybe not changed hands, but morphed a little bit, and they've changed it into originally before the economy went south. As you know, there was a much larger development proposed, and then the developers came in with phase one, which they didn't really need any state approvals or local approvals. But I know they're looking down the road to make some changes, and certainly that's something where the city will be looking for assistance down the road with. Sure. I believe the developers have come up with a different scheme that's less complicated than the one that was proposed before. There was a lot of overlap bridges going this way, that way, and it cost like $40 million. And I think they've come up with a solution that's a lot simpler. And I'm not sure, there's certainly will be permitting issues. And as you know, there's so many, for folks that don't realize it, there's, I think, what is it? You can't have more than one on-ramp or exit ramp within a half mile, or you try not to?
Yeah, we try not to. We have to make sure, particularly for safety purposes and weaving purposes, that on and off ramps aren't close enough. Again, the Woburn I-95, I-93 interchange is an example of that, where it's poorly designed by today's standards. But at the same time, we know the development's important to the city. It's important to the city's economic future. And we have met, not recently, but we've met with the developers, obviously your office and Mayor McCarthy in particular, to see what assistance we can bring to bear. And I also know at a cabinet level, Secretary Bielecki, who's my colleague in Governor Patrick's cabinet for economic development, has also been supportive of the project as well. And cognizant, to your point, that there may be traffic impacts and others we have to be focused on. We don't want to be negatively impacting, the current neighborhoods either.
Right.
But we look forward to continuing to work with you and the mayor and others to move the project forward. So
great.
Appreciate it.
One of the, we were talking a little bit earlier, one of the, and I think you've alluded to this, but the 128 Business Council has an idea of allowing kind of the small buses to ride on the shoulder of the highway when traffic gets a little too congested. And that's something, I guess, that's been successful in North Carolina, at least for one place, and it's relatively or very inexpensive where it's worked, because it's mostly just the signage costs and so forth. So that's something we may explore.
Yeah, we're open to
Waltham.
it. The only caution or caveat is the safety question.
Right.
And so, but as you pointed out, other states have been able to overcome that. So I'll be interested to see what some of the other states have been able to do. We did have an accident, I think with a fatality, maybe now 10 years ago, on 128 further south, where someone was traveling in the breakdown lane appropriately, but at high speed, and hit a car that was in fact disabled. So we have to be sure that whatever improvements we make, we put safety precautions in. But the proposal, generally has that. So I think we're open to anything that can move more people more efficiently and more quickly through these traffic zones, for sure.
Great. Now, there's a number of other things that I know Waltham's interested in getting assistance from the state if possible, possibly parking garage assistance and master traffic plan. I know in Waltham we need a traffic plan, and the mayor's been talking also about having one for the regional area. So maybe that's areas where we can get an assistance as well. Because as you mentioned, the Woburn region, how cumbersome the traffic is there and troublesome. This stretch of 128 is right behind it in terms of traffic congestion, especially when, if we have a little bit of snow or, an accident occurs.
Oh, sure. And you've got major employers in the area as well that are trying to move large volumes of people. And I'd say one other thing, too, particularly for your viewers who might be saying, Secretary, we're interested in transportation, but aren't you guys the ones responsible for that Winter Street Bridge that seemed to take forever? We are cognizant of that, and again, with the legislature's pushing, we are delivering more projects now on time and on budget. That took a long time for a whole variety of reasons, but we are very much focused now on project delivery, because we know that it has traffic impacts, and to your point, whether it's the weather or breakdowns, those two are going to happen, but the last thing that we want to be doing at the DOT is creating more bottlenecks and problems. So, you've got our commitment, and Waltham should know, citizens watching this, we're very much focused on having a sense of urgency about getting our projects done as well.
Well, you've really done a tremendous job, and I know you've really changed the way bridges are constructed in Massachusetts. And really, the Winter Street Bridge might have been a poster child for the old way of what went wrong, but you really turned that around, and congratulate you for that effort. A lot of bridges are being constructed over a course of several weekends now.
Right. No, it's true. We're measuring ourselves not in decades, but in days and weeks and months. And the Fast 14 in Medford was probably our signature project. Had we done it the old-fashioned way, we'd still be designing it. And we were able to do it in 10 weekends, 14 bridge decks. And we've got some other projects like that that we've done or will do, literally heavy lift. We lift a bridge and roll it in. For example, we did one in Boston on the Mattapan, in the Mattapan neighborhood last year, which is really exciting. So we're trying to bring more creativity to bear to get these projects done more quickly.
Well, it's great. Well, I think we're just about out of time. I don't know, sure if there's anything else you want to add in at the last minute, but
well, we look forward to working with you and your office and the mayor and others to make sure that Waltham is a big part of the governor's plan, not only on traffic but just quality of life issues. And we appreciate your support and look forward to continuing working with you. Well,
thank you very much. This is the end of the Stanley Report. I hope you enjoyed my talk with Secretary Davey, and look forward to future reports as well. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Representative.
Appreciate it.